Call 702-646-4000. Beat the heat and call AR Heating and Air Conditioning today.
Welcome to Hash House A Go-Go, where we've been serving farm food and crafted cocktails for over 2 decades. Visit us for the full Hash House experience at any of our 5 Las Vegas locations. Hash House A Go-Go is where old school meets new and gets twisted. We bring people together over good food and fun. Come in for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and come hungry because our portions are huge. Visit us online to see our entire menu at hashhouseagogo.com. Hash House A Go-Go. It's a Midwest thing, and there's nothing else like it.
Is your dog suffering from a sensitive stomach? Hi, it's Kelly the Cookie Lady from Mooch's Munchies. Our dogs had super sensitive tummies, and I needed to find a low-fat treat that wouldn't give them gas or other issues. Most of the treats on the market were loaded with fillers, chemicals, and chicken fat. Many of them weren't even food. Well, I knew I could do better, so I developed Mooch's Munchies, and I'm happy to be able to share them with you. Stop by our store or our website, moochesmunchies.com, and find out why we say that Mooch's Munchies are totally pawsome.
Zen World Premium CBD
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1. Go. Basham.
Liberalism is back in style. Welcome to the evolution.
Great show, Doug. Listen, as soon as Doug finishes the show today, pick up the phone and call a friend and say, hey, man, do you realize we got this great resource in Las Vegas? This guy named Doug Basham, and he's got a tremendous radio show between 11 and 12, and you better start listening. Get your head out of your behind. Democracy's circling the drain, and Doug's here to save us.
I'm back, bitches!
What if you knew Fox News was just lying to you? How could you watch when you know?
He was voted Variety Entertainer of the Year in the Excellence in the Arts Awards and is one of the highest Arbitron, now Nielsen-rated talk radio hosts in Las Vegas. He is also a refreshing voice of logic and reason. Live from the entertainment capital of the world, Doug Basham.
Raise a little hell, raise a little hell.
I know words, I have the best words.
I love the poorly educated.
Right under the toilet. And good morning, my fellow wokes and Republican jokes. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Doug Basham, and welcome to the Doug Basham Show right here on KSHP in Las Vegas and on social media, and to a genuine demonstration of excellence in broadcasting. The website is DougBasham.com. Last name spelled B as in Bob, A-S-H-A-M as in mob. DougBasham.com. My email, Doug@DougBasham.com. Hey, if you're new to the show, here's all you need to know. My website is all of one page. That's it. You'll see the show's logo on top. Underneath it, links to everything associated with this show, including links to all the social media sites on which we broadcast this show live. But here's the only one you need. Click on the YouTube icon. Once there, click on the link that says live. There you can watch the show live, or you can view the archive shows. That's it. 2 clicks. Easier done than said. Oh, and while you're on my YouTube page, if you could manage a 3rd click and click on the subscribe link, I would be grateful. 221-7283 is our call-in number here at the station. If you would like to talk on the radio in our second half hour, that's 702-221-SAVE, as in save our democracy, which is our ultimate and only goal in each and every show we do. So in the name of all that is holy and decent, lock him up. Quick update. The United Auto Workers announced a tentative agreement with General Motors on Monday, the union's third agreement in recent days that likely means the end of the 6-week strike against Detroit's Big Three automakers. Their win came after an aggressive campaign from a new union chief that built on a string of recent labor victories. Here's UAW President Shawn Fain.
This contract is about more than just economic gains for auto workers. It's a turning point in the class war that's been raging in this country for the past 40 years. For too long, it's been one-sided, and working class people have been left behind. That's why this contract is more than just a contract. It's a call to action to workers everywhere to organize and fight for a better life. The auto workers at Ford just won a major battle in the fight for a better world. Billionaires aren't going to save the American dream. Working class people are saving the American dream. The UAW is saving the American dream, and we are doing it together. Thank you and good night.
And so, congrats to my union brothers and sisters on a battle well fought and apparently won, and deservedly so. And how convenient is this, that our Trump brain-dead MAGA cult-based dumbass of the day aligns with something we addressed in detail just yesterday, namely how Donald Trump, by his words, poses a threat to honest and decent Americans just trying to live their lives in peace and do their jobs under our rule of law. Well, what happened yesterday? One hapless and hopeless Trump supporter, Arthur Ray Hansen II of Alabama, was indicted. Why? For making threats to Fulton County District Attorney Fanni Willis and Patrick Labatt, the county's sheriff. According to the indictment by a federal grand jury in Atlanta, this Hansen degenerate called the Fulton County government's customer service line and left threatening voicemail messages for Ms. Willis and Sheriff Labatt in early August, days before Trump and 18 of his associates were indicted in the state. In a voice message for Sheriff Labatt, Hansen threatened the sheriff to not take a mugshot of, quote, my president, Donald Trump, end quote. They didn't say he sniffed, but I'm taking creative license here. I'm also willing to bet the farm he's a sleeve wiper after he sneezes. Hansen said, quote, I'm warning you right now, you could get hurt real bad, end quote. My president. As a wise, legendary American icon and historic figure once said,
stupid is, stupid does, miss.
Stupid is as stupid does.
Stupid is, stupid does, sir.
How many times have you heard me say that one of the reasons, if not the main reason, if not the only reason, people still continue to support this overflowing dumpster of rancid orange garbage is because they're just as bad, indecent, and dishonorable as Trump himself? I give you Exhibit 63,472,985. Mr. Hansen also left a voicemail message for Fanni Willis in which he threatened her and referred to the Georgia case. Part of the message said, quote, watch it when you're going to your car at night. When you're going into your house, watch everywhere that you're going. When you charge Trump on that fourth indictment, anytime you're alone, be looking over your shoulder, end quote. Hansen faces charges of transmitting interstate threats to injure Ms. Willis and Sheriff Labatt and will be formally arraigned on November 13th in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Georgia. Everybody on three now. And for once again reaffirming what we intelligent, decent, honorable, real-world dwellers have known all along, namely that Trump and his base are the biggest clear and present danger and existential threat to everything we hold dear in this country, not the least of which is our democracy, and for once again proving there are no depths to which Trump supporters will not sink in order to prove their unbridled anti-Americanism and sheer stupidity to the entire world, Arthur Ray Hansen II of Huntsville, Alabama, where a man will lend you his wife but not his pickup truck, is today's Trump brain-dead MAGA cult base dumbass of the day. So congrats, Arthur Ray Hansen II from Alabama. And folks, we have discussed this so many times. People should not have to live this way, in fear for their lives and enduring death threats, oftentimes racist in nature, again, for just doing their jobs. They shouldn't have to spend money hiring security for themselves and their families and having to move because of death threats, again, for just doing their damn jobs. And this is kind of personal to me. Back when I was on KDON, when they were on the AM dial, I was pulled off the air for 2 weeks for what both the station and police deemed credible death threats. And this brain-dead member of Trump's base called both the call-in line and the office line and left voicemail messages. And all I did was what I always do. I did my job and told the documented, provable truth. And this is all because millions of mine and their fellow Americans are too damn stupid or are too willfully ignorant or willfully brainwashed to discern fact from fiction, truth from lies, and patriots from traitors. And they've decided that some disgusting fat slob who stands on stage and repeats the phrase fat pig over and over again is someone to not only be admired, someone to not only support as president, but someone on whose behalf you're willing to issue death threats and perhaps even follow through? And to be fair, it's not just Trump. By himself, he'd just be a senile old man yelling at kids to get off his lawn or yelling fat pig to anyone who happened to pass by once the kids left. It is also the fault of what I have referred to for years as the conservative, corporate-controlled, right-wing propaganda hate media industrial complex, who will even take advantage of a holiday meant for children to push their anti-American, unpatriotic lies. Here's one host on Fox Noise just yesterday. Didn't catch his name, don't care. But listen to just the full-throatedness of his drivel.
Today is Halloween. You say there's nothing scarier than the Biden agenda. Tommy, frighten us with your ghoulish take on what Joe Biden has done to America.
What Joe Biden has done to America. Drama queen much? And a proud drama queen at that. This is our new norm, but it cannot be allowed to stand as our new norm. And there is only one route for all of this, just one person, the most contemptible, disgraceful, shameful, and vile human being ever to rise to high office, and the most manifestly unfit traitor to ever betray this country. And thank you to Carrie Farley, special agent in charge of the FBI's Atlanta field office, which is investigating this case, who said in a statement yesterday, quote, Threats against public servants are not only illegal, but also a threat against our democratic process, end quote. Indeed, and thank you for both noticing and speaking truth to power. But just that short little 7-second clip you just heard, that is a brief but shining example of how people become radicalized. When you deliver a line like that, what Joe Biden has done to this country, and you add some, breathiness to it to infer both despair and desperation, this is how people become radicalized. Not by one short 7-second clip like you heard, but by the fact that this exact same rhetoric goes on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It is pervasive, it is relentless, and apparently very effective on its weak-minded target demographic. Just like when you tell them to fight like hell or they won't have a country anymore. Again, you're projecting despair and desperation, and people become radicalized. And like I said yesterday, this will be Trump's long-lasting legacy, a traitor to this nation who tried to destroy the American experiment, who did destroy countless people's lives in the process, and that's just his former attorneys, and not giving a good continental damn about how much collateral damage he caused, nor the threats and violence his hatred and lies inspired. His only accomplishment of note will be the just staggering number of brain-dead zombies he exposed for the abject dumbasses they truly are. And speaking of that Fox Noise drama queen, that's not an idle accusation. I know of what I speak. My ex-wife was a drama queen, so much so we had to go to marriage counseling. The counselor put us in separate rooms, and he began with me. I told him what a drama queen she was, and I told him that I believed she was trying to poison me. He told me he was sure I was mistaken, and he told me to not be a drama queen. I said, go talk to her. He did. He came back 15 minutes later. He sat down, looked me straight in the eye, and said, after talking to your wife, I can see I was wrong and you're right. My advice? Take the poison. In getting back to this Arthur Ray Hansen II mook in Alabama, apparently he recently lost his dad and uncle, and ostensibly he was missing him. And did you know at one point O.J. Simpson considered moving to Alabama? Yeah, because murders are almost impossible to solve there. Why? Because everybody's DNA is the same and there's no dental records. Which reminds me, Alabama does have one claim to fame. The toothbrush was invented there. Think about it. If it had been invented anywhere else, it would have been called a teeth brush. But say what you will about Alabama, at least it's very friendly. 5 million people in the state and only 4 last names. The upside is when women get married, they don't have to change their last names. And people from Alabama don't have family trees. It's just one long branch. It's one of the few states in which you can kill your wife and sister and only one person dies. Apparently, this Arthur Ray Hansen II recently learned how to play the guitar and couldn't wait to show his sister. Apparently, she wasn't that impressed, but their kids loved it. And you know what the preferred pronouns are in Alabama? He and ha. And if you've been to my website, you may have noticed that I have an OnlyFans page. In Alabama, they call it OnlyFams. And you know what the average University of Alabama student gets on their SAT test? Drool. 2 recent events in Alabama. First, there was a bad fire at the governor's mansion, almost took out the whole trailer park. Second, they raised the legal drinking age to 28. Lawmakers said they're trying to keep alcohol out of high school. They also had to cancel homeschooling in Alabama. Too many students were sleeping with their teachers. And yesterday, Halloween is their favorite day in Alabama. Why? Because on that day, no one cares when they pumpkin. And finally, you know how you circumcise someone in Alabama? You kick his sister in the jaw. Ow! But getting back to the issue of threats and violence, courtesy of Trump's brain-dead MAGA cult base, I want you to listen to my gal, MSNBC's Nicole Wallace, demonstrate why they expanded her show from 1 hour to 2. Listen to the intelligent, nuanced way she frames the question, which she asked to former RNC Chairman Michael Steele.
It's happening all day, every day in this country. Just one prosecutor there talking about 150 threats in about 8 weeks, during which the Fulton County case, along with Jack Smith's 2 federal cases against Donald Trump, have been proceeding. And all the while, the ex-president has reacted to every twist and turn in all those cases with a steady, undiminished stream of violent rhetoric directed at the prosecutors, at the witnesses, at the judges, at the court staff, you name it, everyone involved. And that conduct keeps happening despite a gag order put back in place by Judge Tanya Chutkan. Trump today slamming Jack Smith and Fanni Willis as, quote, radical left thugs. The incessant violent rhetoric of one Donald Trump and his supporters posing a stress test for our very system of justice is where we begin today with some of our favorite experts and friends. This ushering in of a permission structure for political violence is something that every elected Republican in Washington just about has been complicit in by not condemning the very first invocations of violence and enthusiasm for violence that Trump uttered as a candidate in 2015 and 2016. And I know that's ancient history, but you know from the violence that has occurred that the permission structure and the activating to go to Washington on January 6th, it happens in real time. The threats against Judge Chutkan, for which there was an arrest earlier this fall, and in this case for DA Fanni Willis and Sheriff Labatt, they're ongoing. They're on Trump's social media feed and from Trump's podiums at his events in real time. The environment could improve at any moment should Republicans choose to improve it, and they don't. Why?
Because they like it. They're okay with it.
And to be honest, I didn't like most of Michael's answer, which is why I didn't play it. It was lethargic, borderline low-energy Jeb, and I even disagree with how he began his response. I agree that there are some members of the QOP who like this chaos and violent atmosphere, but I would bet there are more Republicans in Congress who don't. As much as I loathe most of these people, they're not stupid. Well, if you ignore the MAGA members, Josh Hawley and Rafael Eduardo Cruz, he calls himself Ted, so he doesn't sound too Mexican-y. Minus those abject losers, I would bet the farm the reason most of the others don't publicly object to this violent atmosphere is the exact same reason they allowed their party to be hijacked by Trump and Trumpism in the first place. A combination of fear and cowardice. And at first, it was a fear of mean tweets, which could lead to being primaried and a loss of their jobs. But that acquiescence /fear /cowardice led to something worse, albeit still fear-based. They went from fear of being tweeted and primaried to being fearful for their lives. And it's their own damn fault. Had they shown courage and testicular fortitude when all they stood to lose was their jobs, they may have thwarted the reality they're now facing, being fearful of losing their lives. One can only wonder when, and I do believe it's when, not if, when the next person loses their life to Trump-induced MAGA violence. Will they find their backbones then? Highly unlikely. If anything, that'll probably lead to them being even more fearful of losing their own lives. And so, they are presently being held hostage by themselves, by their own lack of courage when they could have possibly nipped this whole Trump travesty in the bud. And the only possible solution I see, throw Trump in prison for the rest of his life and eliminate today's conservative, corporate-controlled, right-wing propaganda, hate media, industrial complex. Anyone have any better ideas? I'd love to hear them. I did kind of like how Michael Steele finished what I thought was his overall uninspiring response.
Because the flip side of this coin is it comes for you too at some point.
Right.
And you somehow think that because you're standing so close to the disease that you're not going to catch it. Well, you will. It's going to come for you too. And so it's not surprising to see where we are right now, Nicole, with this, that our prosecutors, our election officials, our law enforcement officials are on their own when it comes to their protection and to their ability to do their jobs, because that party has put a target on their backs.
Nicole's next question went to Frank Figliuzzi, former FBI Assistant Director for Counterterrorism. She asked him, what do we do about this current environment in which we find ourselves? And like Michael Steele, I wasn't crazy about his response. I did like when he addressed what we just discussed earlier, radicalization.
Look, despite the message, and the message is clear, that if you are behind these threats, 150 at least just for Fanni Willis, you're going to jail. The federal government is going to put its force behind that investigation, as they did with the woman in Texas who left threatening voicemails for Judge Chutkan, as they did when the FBI attempted to arrest the man in Provo, Utah, who threatened prosecutors and President Joe Biden and was forced to use deadly force when he reportedly swung a weapon toward the arresting agents. Now, as has been done with a man in Alabama. And despite that, this guy in Alabama and 150 other people apparently have said, yeah, that's okay. I get the FBI is taking me away in handcuffs, but I'm going to do it anyway. So we have to ask ourselves why. And I say this is a deep, deep level of radicalization. This is the kind of radicalization that you get when people have a devout religious fervor that they're willing to martyr themselves for. Now, this is turned on its side, and it's turned onto our justice system and the rule of law. There's nothing about illegal threats, unlawful threats, interstate communication of a threat that is free speech. So I don't want to hear it from anyone who's saying, they're arresting people for free speech. They're arresting people because a prosecutor has looked at the case and said this matches the statutory elements of interstate communication of a threat. Now, we'll figure that out in court, but this isn't looking good based on just what we know from this case. So when you have people willing to die, the guy in Utah, the guy who went into the FBI Cincinnati field office, you have people willing to go to federal prison, destroy their lives, their careers, and their families for essentially one man and the deluded belief that somehow society's falling apart and we have to take back democracy. This is where we are. I wish I had the solution. I wish I had the button to press to say, oh, this is how we're going to get out of this. But right now, it's looking like this is going to continue despite the threat of jail, federal prison, and ruination. People are doing this.
Maybe it's just me, but I didn't find that response all that satisfying. Frank said that if you make threats, you will be caught. Fine. But what if some mega moron bypasses the threats and goes right to the killing? Sure, they're even more likely to be caught, but at what cost in human lives? And for that conundrum, the former FBI Assistant Director for Counterterrorism, let me repeat that, the former FBI Assistant Director for Counterterrorism, Frank Figliuzzi, he doesn't know what the solution is. For some reason, as I've said time and time again, no one wants to hit this particular nail on its head. I already gave you my solution, which I believe does hit it right on the head, and so I'll ask you the same question Nicole asked Frank. What do you think we should do regarding our current situation? Especially when you have people like the one caller I had yesterday who is so ensconced in his own party's tribalism and his right-wing propaganda hate media's talking points / lies, he can somehow completely overlook the myriad traitorous Trump aberrations as he desperately tries to find equivalences on our Democratic side when there are none. Not every issue is a both sides issue. This is one of them. Like I told the caller yesterday, there is no equivalence to Donald Trump. None. He is a satanic enigma unto himself. No one, no 100 people, no 1,000 people on the left have done and or said a fraction of what Trump has, period. And that caller should be smart enough to see that. Maybe if he keeps listening, he'll smarten up. Because we do need more brain-dead cult members and die-hard tribalists and media brainwashed minions to smarten the F up before they destroy the country they delusionally think and claim they're trying to save. Nicole then played a clip from Stephen Ayers, one of the January 6 insurrectionists, who believed the lies, and when he was asked by the January 6 Select Committee if he still did, he said, "Not really," which I find as unconvincing an answer as he could give. Nicole then went to Tim Hafey, the lead investigator for the January 6 Select Committee, and Tim comes real close to hitting the aforementioned nail, only to fall short when it comes to the obvious solution to the problem he so accurately pointed out.
And then he hears the president say, "Come to Washington on January 6th, it'll be wild." So he goes. And then before he knows it, he doesn't have any idea about what's going on at the Capitol. He thinks he's going for a speech. He follows the president's invitation to go to the Capitol, and he's inside the Capitol. Now, he's not a victim, right? People are responsible for sifting the information that they get, the misinformation that they get. But it shows, Nicole, just how, as you said, pervasive and how difficult it is to combat this. There are a lot of people in this country that don't trust you, that don't trust me or anybody on this network, that don't trust the New York Times. They don't trust the messenger. So the facts that are so clearly established, they don't trust government, right? That is where the disconnect is. They still have this misguided belief that the election was stolen. And as Frank said, that converts into this almost sort of religious-like fervor to fight back against tyranny. And I think the way you combat it is by calling it out, by holding people accountable. But there's a lag. The criminal justice system takes time to respond, right? This charge is based on some threats that occurred a little while ago. There's now a detention pending trial, but the case will take time to resolve. The criminal justice system isn't proactive, it's reactive. So it isn't going to prophylactically fix this. Hopefully in time, holding people accountable has a deterrent effect, but it takes time.
Oh, Tim, you were so close. You had the hammer in your hand, the nail primed in the 2x4, and you didn't take a whack at it. As Jennifer Flowers said when asked if her affair with Bill Clinton was the same as Monica Lewinsky's, close, but no cigar. So Tim's solution is calling these people out. Sorry, Tim, but the people who need to be called out don't patronize any media entity who does call them out. They are deep within the bowels of the right-wing propaganda hate media bubble and echo chamber to which Tim alluded. And that takes us to something Charlie Sykes, editor-at-large at The Bulwark, said a couple days ago. I had this clip ready yesterday, just didn't get to it. The topic was Trump's verbal gaffes and, of course, the right's hypocrisy by ignoring or overlooking them while attacking Joe Biden for the same thing. As Charlie gets into his response, he addresses the same thing Tim alluded to, the right-wing propaganda hate media. But like everyone else, Charlie has no solution, or at least not one he's willing to verbalize publicly. Now, in the second part of his response, Charlie not only hits the ball out of the park, he knocks the cover off the ball. But we'll hear the first part of his answer first.
You know, one answer to your question, though, is that, yes, the country has changed. Yes, we're appealing to grievance, but also we have a media ecosystem that essentially means that his base is never going to see those clips that you just played. They're going to see a constant loop of Joe Biden's gaffes, but they will never see what you just played. There will be no amplification of his lies, of his gaffes, of the fact that he can't read a map, that he doesn't know what states he's in. So it is the alternative reality that we're in, and it's difficult to know how you break that fever if you can't break into those alternative reality silos. So I don't know.
You know, in all honesty, I think Charlie does know what the solution is because he used to be a major part of the problem, and he admits it. Charlie is a former right-wing propaganda hate radio host. But like everyone else, he doesn't seem to want to come right out and say it. And as I just said, as Charlie continued, I thought this was one of the best dissertations he has ever delivered.
It's difficult to know how you break that fever if you can't break into those alternative reality silos. So I don't know. The other thing, though, is what's truly extraordinary is the level of tolerance for people who know better. Republicans who, in fact, know that this man is deeply damaged, that he's deeply ignorant, that he lacks the fundamental skills and fitness to be in office. And yet, when it comes to it next fall, they'll line up behind his campaign to put him back in the Oval Office. I mean, I would like to think that there was a time when we actually wanted the President of the United States to not only be a man of honor, but to have minimum standards of decency and intelligence, that you would not put somebody who is so fundamentally flawed back in office. But this is the world we live in, where it is all tribal, and in order to remain relevant in the party, you have to drop every single standard of behavior, knowledge, and intelligence and character just to stay in business.
Whew! That was powerful and spot on. Well done, well said, Charlie Sykes. Former RNC Michael Steele somewhat redeemed himself in my eyes with his next response. Now, it doesn't directly relate to what we've been discussing presently, but it was a good response and one every MAGA should hear. He was asked whether Trump views all his legal woes as negative or positive.
So when you're talking about, we saw the scenes of him sitting in the courtroom last week, angered, and he storms out. Well, you know what? Part of that is, he's pissed off and because he can't control it. But that other side of his brain kicks in and goes, good reality TV, baby. They're going to see me come out and I'm still going to be the strong, angry former president. I'm the guy that they're coming after, and I'm showing that I'm determined to fight this. And that further stimulates that base. It further engenders their loyalty and their fealty to him. He does not give a damn about you. You're being punked. You're being used every day for his particular pleasure to save his behind. Your butt's going to jail right now. He's using you to avoid that, to drag the system out, to push back on the work that Timothy and the January 6th committee had done, to go after the colleagues of Frank Figliuzzi who are still in law enforcement trying to serve justice. So he's using all of those instruments to promote himself and push, no matter how bad it seems to the rest of us who normally would just collapse under the weight of 91 indictments. Donald Trump gets a you-know-what from it. He's charged from it. And he's not had, the thing that probably bothers him more than all these other cases, Nicole, is the money deal, right? Mm-hmm. Where they could be potentially coming and taking $250 million plus from him. But even there's the fealty that's going to come from that. When that moment comes, that verdict comes down, and he's handed a judgment, his numbers won't go down. They'll just get stronger.
Okay, a lot of great points there by former RNC Chair Michael Steele, but again, no solution except mine. I mean, if anyone else has got a better solution than mine, I would like to hear it. But nobody's even offering an alternative. Mine, throw Trump in jail for the rest of his life, eliminate today's right-wing propaganda hate media. It's simple, 2 steps. And again, I'm the first one to admit, I don't know exactly how you would do that. I think it would take years of litigation, but it needs to be done. These people are poisoning our airwaves on a daily basis with anti-American, anti-democracy, violence inciting rhetoric. And it needs to stop. How many death threats and eventually deaths is it going to take? And I certainly hope, we can't make a correlation there between that and gun deaths. Otherwise, nothing will ever change and just continue to get worse. Finally, we hear once again from Frank Figliuzzi, again, the former FBI Assistant Director for Counterterrorism. He was asked again, what do we do? This time, Frank does bring up some very valid points, and he uses a phrase we're fond of on this show, cult, but I'm not sure I heard a definitive solution.
How do we respond as a country?
Our court system has never faced anything of this complexity and magnitude, dealing with a president, now former president, and a significant portion of our population acting in a cult-like fashion. And I keep, unfortunately, having to raise the cult factor here because you mentioned, he feeds on the violence. People who study cults use a phrase called forcing the end. You saw it with Jim Jones in Guyana and passing out the poison Kool-Aid when he felt like the end was near. The outcome he wanted wasn't going to happen. You saw it with David Koresh in Waco, Texas, and the Branch Davidians, where they literally burned the place down. Now, figuratively, Trump is trying to burn the place down, meaning our structure and form of government. And, you also said in the context of him feeding on all of this, let's remember he's already planted the seed by saying, I'm prepared to go to jail. That's a recent development for him. And then he disgracefully compared himself to Nelson Mandela, implying he's going to be a political prisoner. This will further fuel the cult to act out violently when things don't happen that they think and promise themselves is going to happen, like a legitimate win in an election. So if we view it as a cult, we've got to treat it that way, and we've got to get into this counter radicalization. And number one, yes, there needs to be consequences. Consequences don't seem to be working very well. Secondly, people inside the cult have to want out. And you'll remember there were people in Waco who were allowed to leave. I want out. The kids went out, some women went out. We've got to work that opportunity. But yet we don't hear anyone on the right, any leadership in the House or Senate on the right, saying, let's all get out of here. I condemn this. It's not happening. And until that happens, we're going to be in this mess.
That was a good point. People inside cults have to want out. Okay? So what better way to help them want out than to remove the cult leader? Along with the media, Jim Jones and David Koresh only wish they had a fraction of to help spread their propaganda and conspiracy theories. And yet, after all this, and bless her pea-picking heart, after all this, following this big discussion wherein no real solutions were offered, again, bless her heart, Nicole ended this segment with this.
I want to press all three of you, because you're expert in this area, of what we do and how we talk about it. I'm going to ask you all to stick around through a break. When we come back, we'll have much more on all of this.
And by the way, I listened to the next segment. It was another long one. And again, nobody offered any solutions. And it's times like this when I wish I was asked to be on a panel wherein the main topic was, what do we do about the present situation in which we find ourselves? They might not like it, but as you know, I do have a solution. I'm not embarrassed to say what it is, and I think it's the only one that will change anything. 221-7283 is our call-in number here at the station, folks, if you'd like to chat. And you can have the rest of the show if you want. That's 702-221-SAVE. To the phones we had, and we'll start with Carl. You're first. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, Doug.
Hey.
Hope you had a good Halloween yesterday.
I did.
Trick-or-treating.
I did.
Good. Listen, when you first started your show, you came down pretty hard on Alabamians. Well, I'm going to tell you, when I went to college, in English class, we had a student there who was from Alabama. I was talking to him, and the professor gave him and said, make this sentence up with these three words: defense, defeat, and detail. And it's not an easy thing to come up with a sentence with that, but he came up with a great one. You know what he said? What he wrote?
What did he say?
Decal jumped over defense, defeat before detail.
And Carl will be here all week, folks. Your waitress. Don't forget her.
That shows the intelligence.
Yeah, no kidding. So, Carl, let me ask you the same question Nicole asked all her panelists. What do you think we need to do to get out of this morass we currently find ourselves in, where death threats have become a daily part of our lives?
That's a little difficult.
No, it isn't.
Can't vote for well, you can't vote for Trump because you'd have more ass with that. Oh. So we can't do that. I don't know. I really hadn't thought about the subject that quick.
Yeah, but Carl, see, that's why I'm here, so you don't have to think of it. My solution is twofold, and it's simple. You get rid of the cult leader. You get rid of the entity that's spreading his lies and conspiracy theories. End of story. End of problem.
Yeah. Well, everything boils down to getting rid of Trump anyway. I mean, that's the main thing. It doesn't really matter because he's going to be spending time in prison anyway. That I'm convinced of.
Yep.
So I really wouldn't worry about it. But anyway, I forgot one thing real quick. Yesterday, I forgot to, on the Halloween day when I called you, did your screener give you that little joke that I told him to tell you?
Oh no, he is apologizing as he forgot to do so.
Okay, let me tell you. Do you know why what October 31st and a empty hot dog have in common?
October 31st and an empty what?
Hot dog have in common.
An empty hot dog?
Yeah, have in common.
You mean a bun with no wiener?
No, it's a Halloweenie.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh,
I thought you needed.
That's horrible. That's horrible.
I thought you needed a little humor. Bad humor.
I appreciate it, Carl.
Okay, take care.
You do the same. 221-7283 is our call-in number here at the station, folks. That's 702-221-SAVE. Back to the phones we go, and we'll talk to Forrest. You're next. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, Doug. I've been listening to your show, and of course, Trump needs to be locked up. No question. But I think we can't rush it. I think we may differ a little bit on this one because we don't want, when the left is challenged and put in jail, we don't want that to rush. And Trump is going to end up in jail, but I think he has to go through the process. I think he really does, and it's painful because people are threatening the lives of other people, and but I just think we have a process we have to go through because we have to be careful we don't change into a different country than we have right now, where we quickly put people in jail without due process. And he's going to be convicted, but I think he does need his due process. Anyway, that's all I've got.
Hey, I appreciate it, Forrest. And, I don't disagree with Forrest. I want Trump to have his due process. And the reason I do is because I think after his due process, he will go to prison. I honestly believe that. I don't see how he cannot. We didn't have a chance to discuss it today, maybe tomorrow, but the case against him in Florida for the stolen documents, I've said this for months, and I'm not the only one. Every legal expert worth his salt has said that documents case is a no-brainer slam dunk. I mean, he took the documents. First, he lied and said he didn't take them. Then he said, okay, I took them, but I'm allowed to. I can do whatever I want. Then he said he would return the documents he originally said he didn't have. But then he didn't return all of them. He kept them. he asked his staff to hide them. He asked his staff to delete the video footage on the server. He ignored a subpoena. I mean, if nothing else, they have him dead to rights on obstruction. But never forget, part of that indictment in Florida falls under the heading of the Espionage Act. And for those who say, oh, well, he's able to declassify stuff just by thinking about it in his mind, idiots, it doesn't matter. I've said this time and time again. Under the 3 laws for which Trump was being investigated, the classification status doesn't matter. And again, we all know he didn't declassify jack squat. They have him on tape in Bedminster admitting he's waving around a highly classified document that he could have declassified when he was president, but didn't. I mean, I don't see how anyone, even the most diehard, loyal Trump humper, can think he's going to skate on the case in Florida, except he's got a very pro-Trump friendly lawyer, Eileen Cannon. And between Trump and her, I would venture to say they're going to do everything in their power to keep delaying this trial. Because that's the one, as everyone says, and I agree 100%, is a slam dunk, no-brainer. 221-7283 is our call-in number here at the station, folks. That's 702-221-SAVE. Back to the phones we had, and we will talk to Gary. You're next. Thanks for calling.
Hey, you know that song, Sweet Home Alabama?
I do.
That's about as American as you can get.
That's one of my
rock band.
One of my favorite songs.
Really?
Yep.
I find that so hard to believe. And he says we don't need to man around. And who's he talking to? He's talking to a fellow Canadian.
Big wheels keep on turning.
No,
carry me home to my kin.
Are you sure you're the right guy that saved democracy?
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely. I am the chosen one. I am the anointed one. There's no question.
But you want to make America great again, too, only in a different
Gary,
way.
no, that's where you and I differ. I think America is already great. For Donald Trump to sit there and say, we're going to make America great, in order to buy into that dishonesty, you have to believe that your country isn't great.
It is great. You're living proof that it's great. Because
okay, so why did you vote for a guy who said he was going to make it great when it already was?
Oh, what do you call it? That's another story altogether. I'm not voting for him. That's a different story. Wait, where's my buddy Little John, who loves to kiss your butt every time? I really wanted to hear from him.
Gary, John doesn't kiss my butt. He just tells it like it is.
All right, we'll let it go till next time. Have a good one. Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thanks, Gary. And by the way, Gary, if you're still listening now that you're off the phone, I took your advice under consideration yesterday to somehow change the format of the show. But, Gary, I got to tell you, if you listen to the beginning of the show, it tells you honestly what my ratings have been back with the Arbitron and now the Nielsen. I get great ratings for what I do, so it's kind of hard to change the format because if you do, you risk changing the ratings. And we don't want to do that, do we? No, we don't. Hey, folks, got to run. It's been a slice. I appreciate you listening and calling. The website again, DougBasham.com. My email, Doug@DougBasham.com. We'll do this all over again tomorrow, hopefully with you. Until then, take care.
Hey listeners, get ready to be excited about traveling again. This is Jeremy Long, the Full Metal Traveler. You owe it to yourself to check out my all-new travel show called Unscaled.